a 6-year-old little girl boards a plane with her mother. But shortly after the plane takes off, the girl disappears from the plane. Everyone on the flight starts looking for her, but no one sees the girl anywhere. Now the question is, where did the girl go from that plane 40,000 feet above? And did they find the girl? Friends, today I have brought the story of a Hollywood masterpiece thriller movie. The movie was released in 2005, and its name is Flightplan. So let's see where that little girl went from the plane 40,000 feet up. At the beginning of the movie, we see a girl. This girl's name was Kelly. Kelly lived in Berlin, Germany, and worked at a plane manufacturing company there. But today, Kelly was feeling very sad, and tears kept falling from her eyes. Because just 4 days ago, Kelly's husband had fallen from a roof while working. Kelly loved her husband Eric very much, but she wanted her husband's cremation to be done in their country, that is, in America. And for this reason, Kelly would take Eric's dead body in a coffin to America. Kelly now goes by bus to a morgue. There, she is shown her husband's coffin, and immediately after that, it is locked. Kelly returns home, and the moments spent with Eric kept appearing before her eyes again and again. Kelly could not believe in any way that Eric was no longer there. It is seen that Kelly also has a little daughter, Julia. She is only 6 years old. Julia is also sad that her father is no longer alive. Kelly then strokes Julia's head and puts her to sleep because tomorrow morning they must catch their flight to America. After putting Julia to sleep, when Kelly comes to the lobby, she sees 2 men in the building ahead who are staring straight at Kelly's room. But shortly after, Kelly sees that the 2 men are no longer there. Kelly does not give much importance to the matter and takes several antidepressant tablets and falls asleep. The next morning, Kelly and Julia take a taxi to the airport. But upon arriving, Kelly sees that their flight has been delayed. And just then, she sees Julia is not beside her. Kelly starts looking for Julia here and there, but the airport is crowded. However, shortly after, she sees Julia standing in front of a shop. Kelly gets very angry. She scolds Julia for coming without telling her. A little later, Kelly and Julia walk from the boarding bridge toward the flight. The plane they are going to take today is a double-decker plane. It has a capacity of about 474 passengers. And Kelly herself designed this plane, so she knows what is in the plane. Now Kelly and Julia check in. Then Julia says, "Mom, I will keep my boarding pass with me." Kelly says, "Yes." Now they enter the plane. They sit in their seats ahead of everyone else. Then, gradually, everyone else begins to arrive. Shortly after, Julia sees through the window that a luggage cart is carrying her father's coffin. Kelly also sees it. Julia says, "Mom, are we taking Dad with us too?" Kelly says, "Yes, darling, we are taking your father with us too." Then Julia draws a heart on the fog of the window glass with her finger. A family was seated right in front of Kelly, with 2 children. And behind Kelly's seat, a man was sitting, who had already started flirting with the air hostesses. At the front top of the flight were the business class seats, and at the back was the economy class, where Kelly and Julia were. Below that was another economy class, and at the very bottom was the luggage room, where Eric's coffin was kept, along with other luggage. No one was allowed to go there. And just before the flight takes off, the air hostesses locked the luggage room. The morning flight had turned into night, and the captain was talking to his co-pilot about it. Then the captain turns on the seatbelt sign, meaning no passengers could leave their seats. Shortly after, the plane takes off. The plane soon rises 40,000 feet above and begins its journey toward America. It would take about 10 hours to go from Berlin to America. So Kelly says to Julia, "A few seats at the back are empty. Let's go to the back." Julia asks, "Why, Mom?" Then Kelly says, "I am very tired today. You will also take a little sleep with me." Kelly is stunned. She says, "What do you mean?" Stephanie says, "According to our flight records, no one named Julia boarded this plane today. I even just called Berlin, and from the departure gate, I learned that no one named Julia checked in today." Kelly gets extremely angry. She says, "What are you saying? Julia has been with me the whole time. We boarded the plane first, and we came right in front of you." Another air hostess there says, "Ma'am, all passenger details are in this list, and your daughter's name is not here." Kelly gets even angrier. She says, "Look, I have Julia's boarding pass." Saying this, Kelly reaches into her pocket, but only finds her own boarding pass there. The air hostesses now look at Kelly with some suspicion. Then Kelly remembers that at the airport, Julia had her own boarding pass. Kelly immediately goes back to her seat and opens the closet upstairs, but Julia's bag is not there either. Kelly says, "Julia cannot take her bag out from here by herself. She is not that tall. Someone must have taken her." Kelly starts shouting. She says, "We need to search the whole plane now. Bad people do terrible things with little girls. Start looking for Julia immediately." Meanwhile, the air hostesses do not believe Kelly because, first, Julia's name was not on the checking list, and second, Kelly does not have Julia's boarding pass. No one around has seen Julia either. They think Kelly is lying. The air hostesses say, "Please, ma'am, calm down and sit. We'll check when the flight lands." But Kelly says, "I want to talk to the captain right now." The air hostesses say, "The captain won't talk to you suddenly like this." Kelly then starts running. She runs straight past the business class at the front of the plane and reaches the pilot cabin door. She bangs on the gate loudly and says, "Captain, please, I want to talk to you." Meanwhile, someone comes from behind, grabs Kelly's hand, and restrains her. That person says, "I am a flight marshal. If you don't calm down, I will arrest you." Kelly calms down a little. It is then seen that the man who had been sitting behind Kelly, flirting with the air hostesses, is indeed an air marshal. His name was Carson. Carson says, "You want to talk to the captain? No problem. But until the captain comes himself, you cannot speak with him." A little later, the captain comes out. Kelly shows him Julia's passport. She says, "Julia came with me. We were the first to board the plane." The captain asks Stephanie, "Are you sure Julia's name is not on the check-in list?" Stephanie says, "Yes, Captain. I checked twice." The captain then asks another air hostess who is standing near the gate when passengers boarded. But she says, "I don't remember exactly." The flight had a capacity of 474. And at that moment, there were about 425 passengers on board. So it is impossible to remember everyone's face. Now Kelly says to the girl, "Did you tell the captain about the doll?" The captain says, "What doll?" Then Kelly says, "Julia's doll was under the blanket where she was sleeping, and she always takes this doll with her wherever she goes." Now the captain says, "Ma'am, did you have any drinks after boarding the flight?" Meaning the captain was indirectly asking Kelly if she had taken any intoxicants. Kelly realizes what the captain is trying to imply. She says, "No, I haven't had any drinks, and I am not intoxicated at the moment. Like the other passengers, I do have some sleeping pills and some anxiety and depression medications." Then the captain says, "How long have you been taking these?" Kelly says, "Only for a few days. Ever since my husband fell from the roof and died. Since then, I have been taking these medications, and today, my daughter and I are taking my husband's body back to America." But Kelly sees that the captain thinks she might have lost her mind, making up stories. Then Kelly says, "I am not under any influence now. I haven't had any drinks. I am completely clear-headed. I have Julia with me. Now, what motive would I have to lie? Think about it for a moment. Please, make arrangements to find my daughter." Now the captain tells the air hostesses to turn on the seatbelt sign so that no passenger can leave their seat. The captain also tells them to search the entire plane carefully. The seatbelt sign is turned on. Meanwhile, the other passengers start getting irritated because the flight was already very late. On the other hand, the crew starts searching for Julia. The air hostess named Stephanie opens a closet. There she sees a secret door leading to the lower part of the plane. This room was at the very front of the plane, and all the software machines were there. Stephanie searches with a torch and calls a few times, but there is no response. Meanwhile, another crew member checks the very upper part of the plane, but no one is seen there either. Kelly also starts searching for Julia with the flight marshal Carson. Then her attention goes to a passenger there. Kelly directly asks him, "Have I seen you before?" The man is Arab. He says, "Yes. From this area, you hoped to go 5 times." Kelly says, "No, I have seen you before. Just last night, you went opposite my flat and were watching me from Allah's room." Hearing this, the man gets completely scared. Since the 9/11 attacks, Americans had developed anger toward Arabs. Now the other passengers also start pointing at the man. The man says, "I have never seen you before. And last night, I was at the Hilton Hotel." He then shows Carson his hotel bill. Carson sees this and believes that the man is telling the truth, but Kelly doesn't believe him. She says, "Where did you hide my daughter?" Carson then takes Kelly aside and asks, "Okay, you are saying someone kidnapped your daughter, and that too inside this plane. Yet your daughter's name is not on the flight check-in list. And in the empty seats there, we can stretch out and sleep comfortably." Then Kelly and Julia go to the back seats and fall asleep. About 2 hours later, Kelly's sleep is disturbed by turbulence. She knew that flights experience such turbulence in bad weather. But when she looks at Julia's seat, where Julia was supposed to be sleeping, Kelly sees that Julia is not there. She thinks Julia might have returned to their previous seat, so she goes to the previous seat, but Julia is not there either. At this time, almost all passengers on the flight are asleep. Kelly sees that the man sitting behind her is watching a movie. She asks the man, "Have you seen my daughter?" The man is a little surprised and says, "No." Now Kelly begins to worry. Where did Julia go? She starts checking the flight toilets. But all the toilets are empty. Julia is nowhere. Kelly now gets more worried. She looks at all the nearby seats, thinking Julia might be sitting somewhere. But no, Julia is nowhere. Kelly then asks one of the air hostesses there, "Have you seen my daughter?" The air hostess says, "Yes, your daughter is in the lounge." Kelly immediately goes to the lounge, but it is not Julia. It is another girl. Kelly again tells the air hostess, "My daughter is not that big. She is only 6 years old." But this time, the air hostess says, "No, ma'am. I have not seen anyone like that." Kelly now goes to the front business class to look, but the air hostesses do not allow her to go there. They say, "There is no little child here." Kelly quickly goes to the lower economy class. She checks carefully here and there, but Julia is nowhere. She checks all the toilets, but no, Julia is nowhere. Kelly then goes upstairs where Julia had been sleeping. There she sees Julia's doll. Kelly knew that whenever Julia went somewhere, she took this doll with her. But her doll is here. A bad thought comes into Kelly's mind. She runs back to their seats, thinking that maybe this time she will see Julia there. But no, the seat is completely empty. A girl sitting nearby asks Kelly, "Are you looking for someone?" Kelly asks her about Julia, whether she has seen her around. But the girl also says, "I haven't seen anyone like that." Meanwhile, an air hostess comes over. Kelly tells her the whole incident. The air hostess, whose name was Stephanie, then makes an announcement inside the flight that a 6-year-old little girl is missing. If anyone sees her, press the call button. This announcement is made everywhere, and even the pilots hear it. Hearing this, the pilots laugh. They say that nowadays children are very naughty, and they are even playing hide-and-seek on the plane. But it is seen that even after a long time, no call button is pressed. Another air hostess tells Kelly, "Don't worry, your daughter is fine. She will come back." Kelly says, "No, her mind is not okay now. Do one thing, turn on the seatbelt sign. Then we can search the whole plane properly." The air hostess says, "Our flight is already very delayed, and turning on the sign now will make it even later." But Kelly pays no attention. She says, "There are N closets on this flight, 4 upstairs and 5 downstairs. Besides, the plane has a gallery, crew quarters, and a small child can go there, which no one has checked so far. So turn on the sign quickly so we can search for Julia." The air hostess then says, "Okay, ma'am, go back to your seat. We will talk to the captain and let you know." Kelly returns to her seat. There she sees a little boy and girl right in front of her previous seat. Kelly asks them if they have seen Julia, but they also say, "No, we haven't seen her." They didn't even know that there was a little girl behind their seat. Kelly then sees 2 air hostesses talking among themselves, occasionally looking at her. Kelly realizes they know something that they are not telling her. She immediately goes there, but seeing Kelly, the air hostess, Stephanie, moves away and talks to someone on the phone. Kelly gets scared. She says, "What happened to Julia? Is she okay? And are you hiding something from me?" Stephanie then says, "Sorry, ma'am. I think your daughter is not on this plane." Meanwhile, those men were at the hotel last night, and there is proof of that. Now, do you think anyone would kidnap your daughter? Is she someone special? Kelly thinks for a moment. Then she says, "Maybe these Arabs want to blackmail me because I am a flight engineer. I can design flights." Saying this, Kelly runs toward the man again and jumps on him, trying to hit him. The man struggles with Kelly, and an air hostess gets thrown aside. Carson then grabs Kelly and says, "If you do this again, I will arrest you." Meanwhile, Kelly sees that the seatbelt sign is turned off, meaning the flight crew has stopped searching for Julia. Kelly cannot understand anything. She goes again to talk to the captain. Meanwhile, because the seatbelt sign had been on for so long, a crowd had gathered in front of the toilets. Soon, Kelly finds the captain. She says, "Have you found Julia?" The captain says, "Come aside. I cannot tell you here." Kelly says, "You can tell me right here." Then the captain says, "Julia is dead." Kelly becomes completely still. She says, "You found her?" The captain says, "No, Julia is not on this plane. After your husband's accident, the hospital where he was admitted was called in Berlin. They said that only your husband was admitted that day. Your daughter Julia was not with him. She jumped with her father from the roof and died at around 2 a.m. That night, it feels like thunder has struck Kelly's head. She cannot believe this. She says, "That's impossible. When Eric fell from the roof, Julia was playing in the park. Today, she came with me on this flight." At this moment, everyone realizes that Kelly has mental issues. Perhaps that is why her husband jumped from the roof. Kelly has not been able to come out of that grief. She still believes her daughter is with her. Now the question is, what is the truth? Does Kelly really have a mental problem? And the Julia we have been seeing since the beginning of the movie, is she imaginary? And if Julia is really on the flight, then where did she go 40,000 feet above? Why can't anyone find her? The captain says, "Look, we understand your mental state, but I cannot disturb the remaining 425 passengers just based on your imagination." Then the captain tells Flight Marshal Carson to take Kelly back to her seat. At that moment, Kelly starts running. But the Arab man comes in front of her, pushes her down, and Kelly hits her head on a seat, losing consciousness. After a while, Kelly regains consciousness. She sees an elderly woman sitting beside her, and she is handcuffed by her own hands. The elderly woman says, "I am a therapist. I understand your pain. Often when we suffer too much, we cannot accept reality." Tears start rolling down Kelly's eyes. She talks to the woman about Eric, about Julia, about how happy they all were. At this moment, Kelly looks out the window, and she sees a heart drawn on the glass of the window. Seeing it, she remembers Julia made this. By now, Kelly is almost convinced that she might actually be losing her mind. But seeing the heart on the window, she becomes completely sure that Julia is indeed on the flight. She acts a little, saying, "I want to go to the toilet and be alone for a while." Carson takes Kelly to the restroom and removes her handcuffs. He stands by the door to make sure she doesn't go anywhere. Inside the restroom, Kelly has a different plan. She knows all the details of the plane. She opens a panel on the ceiling at the very top of the plane and climbs up. She opens a box there containing multiple connections, which she knows how to operate. Meanwhile, Carson knocks on the restroom door. Why is it taking so long? Kelly pops her head out and says, "I need a little more time." Kelly goes back to the box and manipulates a cable into another jack. Immediately, the plane's emergency mode activates and all oxygen masks drop down. Passengers panic. She then uses another jack to create a small short circuit, turning off all lights inside the plane. Everyone screams in fear, and the air hostesses try to calm them. At the same time, a passenger attacks the Arab man, thinking he is behind the chaos. Carson restrains the man. Meanwhile, Kelly leaves the restroom and heads straight for a secret lift that leads directly to the luggage compartment. She begins searching for Julia there. Previously, the captain had not allowed this area to be searched because it contained very heavy cargo, and moving anything could endanger the plane. Kelly finds a car and thinks Julia might be trapped inside. She breaks it open and looks, but Julia is not there. She opens the trunk, as well empty. Seeing the emergency signal, the captain arrives and asks, "Where is Kelly?" Carson replies, "Why?" The captain says, "No emergency has occurred. This crazy woman, Kelly, is causing all this. She's a flight engineer. She knows what will happen if she manipulates anything." Carson checks the restroom and confirms that Kelly is not there. Kelly thoroughly searches the luggage room, but Julia is nowhere. Her eyes fall on her husband Eric's coffin. She opens it, but Julia is not there. Kelly begins to cry. Carson handcuffs Kelly again and says, "We'll have to make an emergency landing for you." Kelly says, "Yes, that's fine. Then we can search for the plane properly." Carson becomes angry. "For what you've done, you'll be arrested after landing. And if your daughter Julia exists, why hasn't anyone on this plane seen her even once?" Carson takes Kelly to her seat. The other passengers applauded because they had been inconvenienced by this crazy woman. Kelly sits and tries in every way to convince Carson that Julia really is on the flight. Carson slowly begins to believe her. Yes, maybe Julia is here because Kelly's behavior is entirely normal. Kelly calls Stephanie to come beside her while Carson goes to speak to the captain. Now comes a shocking twist. Carson is seen at a secret chamber leading directly to the luggage room instead of the pilot cabin. He goes down the secret lift to the luggage room and reaches Eric's coffin. He pulls the fabric beside the coffin, revealing 2 bombs with their remotes stored there. Carson sets the detonators and moves to the front of the plane, where many software machines are located. He sets the bombs there. Then they see a little girl lying there is Julia, the one Kelly and everyone on the plane has been searching for. This proves that Kelly was not insane. She was telling the truth. Julia's disappearance was orchestrated by Carson, who had hidden her and also set up the bombs in the plane's front section. The next question is, what was Carson's real goal? Carson approaches the captain, saying, "That crazy woman Kelly gave me this note. She said she has set a bomb somewhere on this plane. Transfer 20 billion immediately, or another accomplice of hers, who has the remote, will detonate it." The captain panics. "I want to speak to Kelly." Carson replies, "No, Kelly doesn't want to talk to anyone now. But once the money is transferred, you can land at the nearest airport. She will release all crew and passengers. Carson wants a private jet at that airport. No passengers should be informed." His plan is clear. First, make Kelly look crazy in front of everyone, then threaten the captain with the plane hijack and demand the money. Carson tells Kelly, "I spoke with the captain." The plane will make an emergency landing. Once the passengers are off, we can search the plane together. Kelly feels reassured but doesn't understand Carson's full motive. Soon the captain calls Carson, saying Kelly has transferred all the money. Now, we will land at the nearest airport. Soon the massive plane lands, and passengers slowly begin to disembark. Carson tells Kelly, "Stay quiet. My passengers know you will be arrested."
Oh.
Once they leave, you and I will search the plane. Outside, police and special forces surround the area. Kelly still doesn't understand what is happening. Once all passengers have left, the captain also disembarks. Kelly runs toward the captain, which Carson did not want, because if they talk, the captain might realize Kelly's entire plan. Kelly tells the captain, "Please, don't remove anything from the plane. I want to search for everything. Once I find my daughter, you will have to apologize to me because you didn't help me look for her." The captain gets angry. "We've already received all the money. The private jet is ready. There's no need for this drama about a missing child." Kelly then says, "What do you mean? Whose money are you talking about, Carson?" She realizes that if she wastes more time, the plan will fail. She says, "I'm going to speak to the agents." Carson slowly begins to descend the plane. Kelly senses something is wrong and runs outside, seeing a massive police force, just like during a hijack. Kelly then sees Carson reaching into her pocket. In that moment, she realizes everything Carson has falsely accused her of hijacking. She understands that if Carson leaves the plane, he will press the bomb's trigger. Acting like a hijacker, Kelly shouts, "You'll leave only when I say so." Carson returns and realizes Kelly has figured out his plan. Kelly asks, "Where's my daughter?" Carson replies, "We'll discuss that later. First, tell all the crew to leave, or I'll press the bomb's trigger. Your daughter will be the first to die." Kelly then tells the captain the whole truth. Carson says, "What's the point? They already think you're faking losing your child to hijack the plane, and now you want to make me the hijacker instead." Kelly realizes Carson has exposed them. Kelly goes inside the plane and tells all the crew to leave. She tells Carson, "Give your gun to the captain," since there's a hijacker in front of the captain. Carson has to listen to Kelly. As soon as the captain leaves, Carson locks the gate. At that moment, Kelly hits Carson on the head with a fire extinguisher. Carson falls to the ground. Kelly takes the bomb S remote from Carson's pocket and locks it to the gate with handcuffs. Then Kelly sees Steph from behind, holding a large rod. She realizes this flight attendant is also working with Carson. Meanwhile, Carson pulls a gun hidden near his foot. Before he can fire, Kelly dives to the side. Carson breaks the handcuffs and tells Steph to stay there so Kelly cannot escape. Kelly runs toward the business class section. Carson continues shooting from behind. Kelly enters the pilot's cabin and locks the gate. The cabin gate is strong, so Carson's shots have no effect. Kelly quickly plans to reach Julia. Outside, Carson stands with the gun. Kelly opens the pilot cabin ceiling and drops a book inside, making Carson think she might go toward the toilet. Taking advantage of this, Kelly exits the pilot cabin and goes to find Julia. On the way, she sees Steph, who had removed Julia's name from the checklist. Kelly punches Steph, sending her flying. Kelly uses a secret lift to reach the front section of the plane where Carson had placed Julia. She sees that Julia is unresponsive, clearly under the influence of a strong drug. From the roof, Carson realizes Kelly has tricked him. He starts moving toward Julia, but then sees the plane gate is open and Steph is escaping outside. Carson descends, but his condition is weak. Kelly rescues Julia. Carson also arrives, and his plan had been to leave the plane and remotely detonate it from outside. Carson knows that Kelly has another assistant among the passengers, so he doesn't suspect her. Kelly hides with Julia behind the machinery. Carson limps toward the spot where Julia had been lying, but she is no longer there. Kelly stays hidden, suspecting that perhaps Eric was thrown off the roof by Carson's men. Kelly puts Julia inside the chamber and enters herself. Carson sees her. The bomb's remote is in Kelly's hands. Carson says, "You won't press that remote, or you'll die." Kelly replies, "No, I won't. Die you will." She locks the chamber gate and presses the remote button. Immediately, a massive explosion occurs, and in moments, everything in the room, including Carson, turns to ashes. Outside, the captain and police are watching. They say, even after getting the money, "It was that girl who triggered the bomb." Kelly knew from her design of the plane that locking the chamber would contain the blast and prevent it from affecting other areas. Everyone outside looks toward the plane. Then a flight attendant sees Kelly walking out, holding something in her arms. The captain says, "That's her daughter, Julia." Everyone is shocked. The captain and everyone else realize that Kelly had been telling the truth all along. They just hadn't believed her. Later, the police arrest Steph for conspiring with Carson. They also arrest the morgue assistant from the Berlin hospital who had falsely reported Julia's death. Then the captain personally approaches Kelly and apologizes. The passengers also turn their attention to her. Kelly forgives everyone, and that's how the movie ends. Now, a question arises. Why did no one notice Julia on the plane? The movie doesn't explicitly explain, but some assumptions can be made. There were about 425 passengers on the flight. Among so many people, it's easy for a small child to go unnoticed. Additionally, both Kelly and Julia were quiet and not talking to anyone due to their distress. And Julia was asleep at times, so no one noticed them. Another reason is human psychology. When the flight attendants announced that Julia hadn't boarded, even if someone had seen her, they wouldn't have recalled it without conscious effort. Because of Kelly's story and her condition, people naturally misunderstood the situation. Finally, when the morgue reported that Julia had fallen from the roof and died, everyone became certain that Kelly had been telling the truth. Friends, what did you think of this movie? Let us know in the comments. For more movies like this, subscribe and stay tuned. See you in the next video. Until then, stay well and healthy.